Tell me when we're live. We are now live. All right. So, hi, everybody. My name is Jennifer Denman. I have been a licensed massage therapist for about 24 years now. I have taught massage for over 10 years, and I run a practice out of my sacred space now myself. My journey working with breast cancer survivors started in 2005, and that was with my mom. My mom was a 12-year breast cancer survivor. She passed away in November of 2016. And so, as her journey progressed and my massage therapy practice progressed and me teaching massage, I knew that the path just took me towards working with breast cancer survivors. So fast forward to 2011, I started working with another fabulous woman. Her name is Sally Spurgeon, and her and I actually co-created a specific way to work on women from their breast cancer diagnosis all the way through their reconstruction. So for the last 10 years, this is the type of work that I've been doing. Before that, I was in the teaching realm for 10 years. So I've been walking this journey with a lot of women over the last 10 years. And I'm probably one of the first people that get to see them after their surgery or right after their diagnosis. Because if I can get them in to see me before they actually have their surgery, then I can actually start working on the healing process even before they have their surgery. Fascia is a huge part of that. So when they're coming in to see me, especially before surgery, what happens is I am loosening up the fascia and any scar tissue or lymphatic issues that they might have before they actually have their surgery. What that does is it helps to allow them to heal faster. It allows the surgeons to be able to do less cuts because the adhesions have already been moved away. And then another thing that it helps with is the emotional part of it, understanding that they have support before they go in for their surgery. And that's one of the reasons that Stacy and I created that scar care class. So if you have clients that all the way from their diagnosis to when they're coming to see you, anyone along that journey can actually benefit from that class that we created. And Stacy and I met a couple of years ago. She was actually here doing one of her A.R.T classes, and one of my tattoo artist friends was actually in the class. And then with me working with all of the breast cancer survivors that I work with, his wife had posted, "We need some models." And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got models. So I called up a couple of my friends, and one of my friends actually came in to be one of the demo bodies for the A.R.T class. And I walked in, and Stacy and I both had pink hair at the time. And it was like, we are kindred spirits. And I'm like, I need you to come and get on my table so that you can see what I do. This stuff goes hand in hand. So if you can find a massage therapist in your area to partner with, you guys can help take it to a whole nother level of healing for these people. Because things that I've found through having conversations with Stacy and then creating that class was a lot of things that a tattoo artist might not understand. Like, she's like, I didn't realize that we can do I usually turn away people with radiation. I'm like, no, a massage therapist, me as a massage therapist, I have the ability to help soften up that tissue so that hopefully eventually it can actually be tattooed. There are ways of doing that. It's a slow process, right? It's not like they come to see me one time and then, they can have a tattoo. It could be 6 months to a year of treatment with a massage therapist that specializes in lymphatic massage and myofascial work and scar work. So finding a massage therapist with those sort of specialties is really important. So someone that works with in the myofascial world, in scar tissue work, and lymphatic work. Lymphatic work is probably one of the biggest parts of it. Well, so is myofascial, because that's actually what we're going to talk a lot about today. And like I said, if you guys have questions, you're more than welcome to ask, but sometimes I go down rabbit holes. So if I'm on one of those, please put anything in the chat that you want to. I'm going to save this chat. So as I finish creating this course specifically for you guys that Stacy was talking about earlier. So the goal is I'm going to do like a 2 to 3 hour webinar at the end of March. $99, and then like 2 or 3 hours where we can go more in depth on this stuff, because I'm just going to have a conversation with you about the things that I've seen in the last, well, actually 2005. So you're talking 16 years watching my mom go through all of this stuff also. But it's a magical team that we can create. So like I said, I had brought one of my clients in to be one of the models. And she was one of my clients that had a lot of radiation. She had lost range of motion, and her working with me for about 6 months, we had gotten her full range of motion back. The breast tissue, some of you guys that have been working with the survivors, you can see how contractured or how stuck that tissue is, and there's like almost no movement in it. So by pairing up with a massage therapist, you might have a client that comes into you and you're like, you're not ready for me yet. Doesn't mean that you can't get ready for me, but let's get you to some help so that we can get to a stage so that your tissue is healthy enough for you to be able to have a tattoo. Because one of the things that, and I'm sure Stacy goes into this in her programs, is we have to be careful with these women, because they have the ability to come down with lymphedema. So if we do more damage to the tissue, we can actually cause further damage. Lymphedema caused my mom to lose her arm. Okay. In 2015, she got her final diagnosis with breast cancer. So her 5th diagnosis, it was in the opposite breast. We had been dealing with her left breast since 2005. And then in 2015, 10 years later, they found a new cancer in her right breast. But so I took her to one of the specialists that I had been working with, and Dr. O'Neill is a fellowship trained breast specialist here in Las Vegas, who's actually from England. And I think she's actually going back to England. So, but I was really grateful to be able to spend as much time with her as a professional, and her allowing me to actually come in to specific surgeries. So I've actually been in the surgery suites watching these surgeries take place, so that I can further understand in depth what a woman goes through when they're actually having a mastectomy. And then there's different types of mastectomies. So sometimes it's not just the chest that you're dealing with. There can be scars, in the back. Like some of these scar lines go almost all the way around the entire circumference of the body. They might be having a tram flap done where they've got a chest wound and an abdominal wound. And then some of the tram flaps that they do is they actually bring it up and underneath of the abdominals and then bring it in. So they don't cut it out. Not all of them they don't just do like a tummy tuck and then take the tissue and bring it up here. Sometimes it's fed up underneath the tissue. So there's lots of different types of breast surgeries that can be done. And if you guys want more information on specifics on those sorts of things, I can put that into that class. So if anybody's interested in that, say yes in the comments. I want more on types of surgeries. So I've literally I've been in approximately 10 surgeries with her, because she's like, okay, you've seen this. We were like going off the checkoff list. Okay, you've seen this, you've seen this, you've seen this, you've seen this. What else do you want to see? So I've been able to actually sit in on the surgeries and watch these women have their mastectomies or explants, or in the processes of the reconstruction where they're taking out the expander. and then putting in the implants if that's the route that they've chosen to go. So it's not just trauma from a mastectomy or a lumpectomy. A lot of women's, including my mom, they just have lumpectomies done. So there's a gamut of different types of surgeries. There's a gamut of different types of trauma that this woman's body goes through. And the trauma literally starts the day that they're getting their diagnosis in the doctor's office. So when you think about fascia is, so if you don't know what fascia is, it's the connective tissue layer that holds the whole body together. If you've ever peeled a chicken breast and there's that thin membrane underneath the skin before you get to the actual chicken breast, that really thin layer, that is the fascia. Now fascia, that layer of connective tissue is literally wrapped around every fiber of everything in the entire body. So fascia goes literally from the bottoms of your toes to the top of your head. And it controls and regulates how the water moves through our body. You know, our body is 70% of water, and water is what keeps everything moving. That's how electricity goes through our body. That's how neural pathways are created, and the neuron firing works better. Water, if you work with emotions, water moves emotions also. All right. So by being able to help those dams be softened from the scar tissue. And then there's work that you guys do too. The needling techniques that you do to help break up the scar tissue. What that does is it helps to break up the matrix of the scar tissue, and then blood and lymphatic fluid and nutrients and oxygen and waste products can actually flow more freely through those tissues. So that's huge. So that's a step that you guys can start doing, maybe even months before you're actually going to do the tattoo work. So this could be somebody that you're creating a relationship with. I start doing my work about, well, like I said, before the actual mastectomy takes place, or usually about 2 weeks after the mastectomy. I usually like to wait until the drains have been removed, because those are open wounds and I want them closed. I have worked with a few women under doctor supervision, with Dr. O'Neill, and she would have sent me a few clients where I worked with a few women that they had open, and it wasn't a drain per se. It was, they were doing a different type of expander technique where the tubing was coming out instead of having a port that they usually fill. Now, women, when they're having the expansion process done, their scars are spreading and separating. So that might be an area that you might be able to help with, is by helping to break down the scar tissue when the expander process is going on. That was one of the things that we did a lot. We usually worked on a woman about 2 weeks or a week before her expansion process. And then it's usually every 2 weeks they're going back and the expanders are getting a little bit more fluid put into it. So that what they're doing is they're trying to create that pocket that the implant is going into. So the woman's going through so much trauma, like I said, from the diagnosis all the way through their healing process, including being on a massage table, which is close to an operating table or an exam table. And then you guys are doing the same thing when you're putting them on a tattoo chair, which is very similar to a doctor's office chair, an examination room. So when they get back in those positions, the body remembers that trauma. It remembers the trauma of the diagnosis. It remembers the trauma of every exam that they've ever had. And then it also remembers the trauma of the surgery itself. Okay. So fascia, when it is put back in the exact same position, can relive that same trauma. So a lot of times when you guys are working on women and doing their tattoo process, yes, it can be just a regular emotional release and it can be more of a joy-filled experience. Like I am taking taking control of my life again, and no one's going to be allowed to make me not feel good. And so that it can be a very empowering experience by working with you guys and transforming, whether it's through a regular tattoo, some beautiful piece of artwork that they've chosen to put on their chest, or if it's the areola restorative tattooing where they get nipples back. I can tell you myself, with working with these women that have had the areola restorative tattooing, I get so excited when I pull back that sheet and I see their 3D nipples, and I want to celebrate every time I get to pull that sheet down and see that. A lot more doctors are trying to do the nipple sparing surgeries now, where if you had surgery even 5 years ago, they weren't as caring about that, where we're finding that a lot more doctors are shifting into that sort of experience with their clients, because they see how emotionally important it is. I mean, if there's cancerous tissue in the nipples, they have to go. All right. And we all understand that. But if they can save those, because what I found through the hundreds of women that I've been able to work with is that when there is no nipple there, that all they can see is scar. All they can see is the mutation. All they can see is the monstrous scars and the abnormality, or their vision of abnormality, because that women have had breast tissue, and our society, that's part of the femininity, which I get. I mean, that is how we nurture children and how we feed children, and it's a big part of being feminine. But feminine, to me, there's so many other pieces to it, and not just breasts. But I also don't want to discount anyone's journey, because for them, if that is one of the biggest pieces that they feel is their femininity, I like to go with the attributes a little bit more, about how courageous women are, and how curious that they are, and how nurturing that they are. So there's different ways that you have the ability to help them maybe see other aspects of femininity besides just the breast tissue. But so if they can leave the nipple, it gives them something else to look at besides the scar tissue. I have worked with so many women where they've never touched themselves after their surgeries. I have literal women come to me 6 months after their surgery, and they still have stickiness and glue and things like that, because they've been so afraid to touch that tissue. Myself or you might be the first person to touch their chest after their surgery. And that's something that you guys really need to understand, is, creating that sacred healing space for them to have that really empowering experience is huge. I literally have had women that, because when they come to see me, they have to sign a waiver for me to work with them, and I can work with them through their clothing all the way down to a fully exposed chest, and me working directly on the tissue. And I have some women literally 6 months after their surgery, they're healed, and then they come in because they're dealing with some sort of range of motion issue, or pain, or heaviness, or something like that. And they come in and they've never touched their chest after their surgery. They might run a washcloth over it or not, because literally I have sat with a woman, and their first session with me is literally removing the glue from their surgeries that might have been a month ago, up to 6 months. Because if you don't scrub that off a little bit, most of us have had some sort of an injury where we've had that super glue type substance put on us, or you've had super glue on you before, where literally it's still there 6 months later. It's there a month after their surgery. So it's me using warm compresses, and it's me using lemon essential oil to help pull up the stickiness, And that might be our first session where I'm literally just touching them and giving them, allowing someone to touch what they feel is no longer them, or that they are a monster, that they're no longer a beautiful woman, is a very intimate journey that you get to take with these women. And if you've already been doing the areola restorative tattooing, you have most likely experienced some of that already. So taking it slow, and if you need to do more than one consultation with them to get them comfortable with you, maybe doing some sort of video chat. Hey, we're coming up on our session. Are there any more questions? Because you have to remember, like Stacy was saying, these women, they get their diagnosis, they're told what to do, and it's like, boom, everything happens hopefully quickly for them, but they're in this shock state where everything doesn't sink in. And if we can take just a little bit longer and allow them to integrate and let their guard down a little bit, so that more than just a physical healing can happen, is really important. Like I said, sometimes my first session with them is just to see where their range of motion is. Let me palpate the tissue through their clothing so that they can get used to someone touching them. So there's a lot of baby steps that sometimes need to happen. So if you can create a little bit of a longer period, then bring them in with the nipple backs and let them try them on, so that you're working together. There's lots of different ways that you can integrate several maybe sessions, or even if it's just a Zoom, session where they're being able to talk about things and be heard. Holding space, which I love, Kelly doing the yoga, learning how to create a sacred space for them to feel comfortable is super important. I know Stacy usually has a private room that they get to go into. Just thinking about how can you make it as sacred as possible, whether it's smudging before you start, or if you've got an essential oil spray, or so the more that we can help them take the baby steps to bring themselves to a more freeing aspect. Sorry, that's my dog. Harley, come here. Come here. Come here. Come here and lay down. Come here. Come on. Come on. So if we can help them become a little bit more empowered, that is super important. So creating specific space for them, finding out how they want to feel afterwards. Because if we can help someone come from a space of stuck trauma to let's take the next baby step in the journey, is also really important. We can help them feel more empowered and take their femininity to another level, or see it in a different light, which is super important. So holding space for someone is really important. Sometimes just allowing someone to say what they need to say and actually be heard. Active listening is a really huge part of that, and we can go deeper into active listening in the actual workshop. But it's basically messages you're just repeating back to them in their words, use their words to, that's one of the things that we really need to understand, is that using their own words are super important. Let me understand exactly where you're at. Is this what you're telling me? And then kind of, repeat back to them in their words. And the more conversations that you have with people, you're going to understand what words are very electric or really powerful, by the way that they are speaking them. Like, you can usually tell where the electricity of which words in a conversation are, where the emphasis is, or the words that they keep on going back to over and over and over again. And then you can ask them, how would you rather feel? Where do you want to get to? How do you want to feel at the end of this session? Because then they can learn to start honing in and concentrating on the empowered feelings that they want to feel. And let them come up with those specific words. My word for this year is spaciousness. I want to be as spacious as possible so that I can allow and receive all of the gifts and things that I am supposed to receive. Because if we're full of all of the garbage all of the time, then you don't have the ability to receive anything. All right. And then a lot of times, the women that are going through this, they've never been on the list. Okay. Doing the restorative tattooing might be the first time they've ever put themselves on a list ever. And they are probably feeling like, I shouldn't be doing this because I'm taking, clothes off of my children's backs, or, I could have paid a bill with this. They've never been on the freaking list ever. We do everything to help everyone else out in our lives. And this might be the very first time they've ever put themselves on a list, which is huge. So helping a woman become empowered in that way, to see herself as important as everybody else in her life, is life-changing. I go through the same thing with women coming to see me. They're like, oh, well, this isn't covered by insurance and I can't really afford this. And the doctor wants to send me to physical therapy. And, I can afford it because it's covered under insurance. Well, when you look at the big scheme of things, yes, it might be covered underneath insurance, but they want you to go 3 times a week. And then there's a $30 deductible. So you're actually paying $100 a week to go to physical therapy, where that is the exact same price of one session with me. And I love physical therapists, and I love the physical therapists that do axillary web syndrome work, where cording is another area that we work in. So a lot of times, the axillary web syndrome is those cords that almost look like a guitar string. So if you've got a woman that raises her arm, and you can actually see, it almost looks like a rope or a guitar string coming from her surgery site up her arm. It can go up her arm and into her elbow, and it literally looks like cords. And in the webinar that I'm putting together for you guys, I'm actually going to have pictures of all that stuff. So if you've never seen it, you'll be able to see what it looks like, because sometimes you're like, what the heck is that? So axillary cording is something that women have to deal with. And by releasing the scars around the breast with the needling that you guys can do, can actually help with that cording, which then can help release the arm so that it can have better range of motion, so that they can, wash their hair, so they can put their makeup on their face, so that they can, curl their hair, so they can make themselves feel beautiful in other ways, or just feeling free. Like I don't have to ask somebody for help to get the stuff off of the top shelf in the kitchen. it can be a very empowering uh, feeling to not have to ask for help. That cording, most of the time we find it going, like I said, from the scars in the chest, through the axillary area, and then up into the elbow. I've also seen it where it goes downwards through the abdomen, whether or not they had a tram flap or not. If they've had any other abdominal surgery, I can remember one woman that I was working with, and I had her, I have her raise her arms up over her head so that I can see where the restrictions might be going to. So that fascia, like I was saying earlier, runs from the tips of your toes all the way to the top of your head. So if you can imagine like one of those cloth dolls or the nylon dolls that grandma had made for you back in the day. And then it gets a hole in it, and grandma fixes the boo-boo, right? So she stitches it back up. Now all of a sudden the doll no longer stands straight. She's kind of like this, but she's still your doll, right? So now she's got a scar. All right. So all of that fascia is puckered where the stitches are. So same thing happens inside of our body when we have any sort of cuts. So every cut or surgery that we've ever had, that's actually what's happening, is the lines of fascia get shorter where the scar tissue is. So scar tissue, it's made up of collagen and elastin fibers and a lot of ground matrix. But what it does is it kind of creates like this web. So when you guys are doing your the needling techniques, you're actually helping to soften the matrix. You're helping to soften that web up. And then when doing that, it will help to bring the person from here back up a little bit. Okay. And then it also helps the blood and the oxygen and all of the nutrients and everything flow through there, because there's nerve endings, there's blood vessels, there's lymphatic vessels that get pinched or are surrounded in that scar tissue. So sometimes after I do like a cupping session with them or a myofascial session, they might all of a sudden get sensation back in an area that they didn't have. Sometimes a woman will come to you guys, because I've actually seen it in a video that Stacy has, where all of a sudden their eyes get this big because they have sensation for the first time. And it's because of a pass with a needle that was done. And all of a sudden you've released that scar tissue that had encapsulated that nerve. And then all of a sudden they have sensation where they hadn't had sensation since their surgery. Now I have some women that had surgery over 20 years ago, and then they're coming in and we're doing the myofascial work and the cupping, and all of a sudden, even 20 years after their surgery, we can free up those nerve endings, and all of a sudden they're getting feeling back even 20 years later. And then I work with a lot of clients that I do a lot of post-surgical work. So breast is not just the only one that I do, but so sensation can come back even 20 years later, not as usual, but sometimes it's just that scar is so thick that the nerve endings can't reconnect. So sometimes by softening it back up. Now, one of the easiest ways for me to explain it is if you take like a regular sheet of paper, and then all of a sudden, like when you were a kid, you folded it in half and then you started to rub it back and forth together. And then all of a sudden, in 10 minutes, it feels like a tissue instead of a piece of paper. That's literally what we're doing, is we're helping to break down that ground matrix and the collagen and elastin fibers that are within that scar tissue. So then it frees up enough to allow all of the fluids and the electrical impulses to go through way better. So those are phenomenal things. But when we are doing that, like I was saying earlier, the body holds every memory. Fascia holds every memory that has ever taken place in your life. So when you get placed back into that exact same position, of when you had your diagnosis, or when you went in for the biopsy, or when you went in for surgery. When the body gets back into that same position, it can remember that trauma again. All right. So a lot of times that's where the emotional release starts to happen. Emotional releases are great, because if an emotional release can happen, what you will do is they start to let go of that trauma. The body starts to let go of that trauma. And then while you're working on them, you are creating an empowering memory for them. All right. So if you are working with a woman and they start to go into an emotional release, there's a conversation that has to happen. Are you okay? Do you want to continue, or do we need to stop for a minute? Because another thing that you guys have to remember is when you guys are when you're pulling that skin taut to do the work, you're doing myofascial work, whether you know it or not. Okay. So myofascial work is what allows the body to start unwinding. Okay. There's a term, it's called thixotropy. So when the body goes into, so normally the fascia is very fluid. All right. And when there's an impact or a trauma, the body automatically goes into this hardened state to make sure that nothing explodes outward. If you're in a car accident and you get hit from behind, the front of your body tightens up so that the inertia, it tries to stop the inertia so that things don't get damaged. And it's actually called thixotropy. So everything tightens up. When you guys are working with these clients and you're pulling on the fascia, it becomes more gel or watery when you're working on it. Because if you've ever been holding an area and then all of a sudden your hand starts to move and you're like, I don't know why this is moving, but it's moving while I'm tattooing. What's happening is that gel, it's going back to a more normal state, which is phenomenal. That's actually what we want to have happen. So when you're doing that hold and an emotional release starts coming up, there's a conversation that should happen. Doesn't always happen, but it really needs to happen. Are you okay? Do you want to talk about what you're feeling right now? Do you want to continue going on? Okay. And if for any reason they're like, I can't handle this, you can stop it. You start talking about I want you to think about the room that you're in. Bring them back to right now, because a lot of times what's happening when that emotional release is starting to happen is they've gone back to that specific trauma. Right. They're reliving that diagnosis. They're reliving that biopsy. They're reliving that surgery. All right. Because you've got the body in the exact same position that it was when the trauma was created. And same thing if you're working just with other scars on the body. It doesn't necessarily have to be a breast scar. A lot of you are doing just scar cover-ups. All right. So on any area of the body, these same principles, work with that also. So when the emotional release starts to happen, are you okay? Do you need to talk about it? Do you want to continue? Do we need to stop? Those are really important questions, and allow them to answer it, and give them the time, because just like all of us, if we're in a super emotional state, it might take us a minute even to be able to get that out. And sometimes no one's ever been asked when they're in the middle of trauma, are you okay and how can I help you? All right. We're just used to being beaten. All right. So you automatically go into the fear of it, or you recoil, or you disassociate. You literally leave your body when you're in trauma. All right. If anybody's ever had any childhood trauma, same thing. You learn how to disassociate from pain and trauma. So when that kind of shit comes straight at you, okay, I can leave the shell here so it can take whatever it needs to, but I'm checking out so that I can be as healthy as I can. So giving them an opportunity to have space, are you okay? And give them time to answer that question. Do you want to continue? Give them a chance to answer that question. Because some people, when they're having those emotional releases, they're like, "Fuck yeah, let's keep going. I want to get rid of this however I can." All right, so then let's go to those words. Let's go to those empowering words. How do you want to feel when you're done? I want you to breathe in whatever word you wanted to have when you're done, because you're filling those spaces right now with it. You have the ability to let go of anything that no longer serves your highest and greatest good. Today is your day to become an empowered soul. This isn't just physical work that you guys are doing. You guys are doing soul work. Literally, you're helping someone heal their soul. So give them the moments that they need, that time to breathe, the time to process, because as that tissue is shifting and possibly reliving that trauma, or just releasing and trying to figure out the new thing that needs to go to fill that hole there. And that hole is not just on a physical level, it's on an emotional and spiritual level also. So by giving them the moments that they need, the breath, um, do some breath work with them. I'm not going to ask you to quit holding that though. Keep the hold there so that the tissue can continue to unwind unless they say stop. All right. Because you guys have the ability to stop the emotional release also. So if they say, yes, I need to stop, then it's let go of the tissue. Do a compression in and around the area so that the fascia will quit shifting. Bring them back to the table. How does a table feel underneath you? What does the room feel like? Is the temperature good? Do you need a blanket? Do you need some water? Bring them back to this moment, into the present moment, because when a fascial release is happening, we literally they're not here in the present. They've gone back to when that trauma had taken place. All right. They're there. They have opened that door that they had closed, when they decompartmentalized, they're allowing those gates to be opened. And that's why it's important to have that safe space for them to be in. That's why it's super important that you're present during these sessions, and that you're not somewhere else and you're not thinking about something else, because your energy when you're touching another human being is flowing into them. You two are connecting on a soul level while you're touching them, and they're allowing you to touch them. That energetic flow is going. So you need to be present throughout this entire process too. Super important. Like I said, the active listening. What do they need at this very moment? A lot of women, they're like, I can't do this. And then it's like, all right, let's stop. Let's take a breath. Do you need to get up and move around? Sometimes the ability to just stand up or sit up and get out of that trauma position is huge, because then they are empowered, because they got to say, no, I need to sit up right now. You're allowing them to reclaim their power, because when they're in a doctor's office, we've been taught to allow them, because they're the authority, that they know better than I do, even when possibly on the inside they're screaming like, holy hell, what am I doing? So if you can allow them to be in control of the session, you're allowing them to become more empowered. So when that myofascial shift is happening, you're allowing them the empowerment that they've never had before by just asking them a question. Are you okay? And do we need to stop? Just taking a breath with them. Let's both breathe through this. Doing some breath work it can be really powerful. And if you've never done breath work before, just having them even imagine that they're bringing in this beautiful gold or pink light into the area surrounding it, holding it for about 4 to 5 seconds, and then exhaling that black, murky sickness from inside. They've been able to release those emotions that are in there. All right. And then now let's take another big breath, because you'll learn to see the shift in the body when an emotional release is starting to happen, because all of a sudden, like, the whole body gets super still for about 5 seconds to about 30 seconds, maybe up to a minute even, where you're like, okay, did they quit breathing? They're not, like, literally everything stops. That's when the myofascial, that's when the release starts to happen, is there's this stillness that comes over, because basically the door has unlocked to go into that trauma. So when you see that, and if you can start to being aware, but that means that you have to be totally present and watching what's happening with the client. And I'm sure most of you guys are already doing that anyways, because you can tell, when the body is reacting to the pain, you know, um, or if the anxiety levels are, shooting through the roof, if the feet start moving. And sometimes that can even be an emotional release too. So if you're starting to see those cues, it's important to recognize all of that too. So they might not be having an emotional release at the top of their body. It might be further down. It might be in their hands. That uncontrollable shake that they sometimes get. Yes, it might be low blood pressure or low blood sugar, because the adrenaline has been going for so long when the tattoo is going. But that can also just be an emotional release that they're happening from an unwinding. When you guys are pulling that tissue for a sustained amount of time, there is always going to be some sort of myofascial release there. Always. Okay. So by allowing that to happen, and so you have to look at cues in other areas of the body also. Whether it's the feet wiggling, whether it's that uncontrollable shake, throughout the entire body, whether it's all of a sudden the arm is doing like this dance while you're working on them. By understanding those, you're going to help the client also, because that's part of the unwinding. Even though you're working up here in their chest, the release might be happening in another area of their body. So you can let them know, I want you to know that I see your body's reacting. Okay. Are you doing okay? Do we need to stop for a minute? Do you need some water? It's okay with what your foot's doing right now. That's actually, you're having the myofascial, it's releasing. So by you being able to reassure a client that they're perfectly okay and they're safe, and no matter whatever they need to do at that moment, allow it to continue if that's what you want to do. Or if you need to stop, we can stop. I've had clients where they get off the table and then all of a sudden they want to walk backwards. That's perfectly normal. And this process doesn't just stop when you finish the tattoo. This is a process that might take actually 24 to 48 hours afterwards, because the unraveling might take a few days for it to all process through. So if you aren't following up with your client, it might be a good idea, especially if they have emotional releases. Check in. How you doing? Because don't become part of the trauma if possible. Uh, become part of the empowerment process. Because from all of the things that you guys had said earlier, when we did the introductions, that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to help them become an empowered. You're trying to help them heal. So taking the time to do the follow-up to make sure that they're okay and see if they have any questions. And that's why I said earlier, if you have a massage therapist in your area that does this sort of work, you might be able to send them to that person afterwards, to do some follow-up work with them. I know that normally, what is it? Is it like a couple of months later, you guys do a touch-up? Yes, it can be another really powerful session then. So it's just, you guys are a huge part of the healing process and releasing the trauma. And I'm so grateful that all of us are on this journey together. And I'm so grateful that Stacy and I were meant to be in the same room 3 years ago. Because it's been an amazing journey that we have taken together. So I have, like I said, so at the end of March, I'm thinking, I want to say like the 3rd week of March, where I'm going to do a more in-depth going into the different types of scars, a little bit more about fascia and myofascial unwinding. I can go deeper into how to create sacred space, the active listening process. All of those things are things that I do on a daily basis. So not only am I a massage therapist, I'm also a body mind coach. So I help people get out of their heads. I help people unplug from this liar, because I think it's really important that we learn how to come down into the body and listen to your own inner wisdom. And I not only do stuff in person, but I do stuff online. So if you've got clients that you think would benefit from that, you can send them my way also. I'll make sure that you guys get all of my information, so that if you want to reach out, you're more than welcome to reach out. And then does anybody have any questions? You can raise your hand, unmute yourself, and ask a question, and I'll try and answer it for you. I know that I kind of bobbed and weaved through a lot of different things this morning. But I want to give you guys a chance to ask a question. And for me, I've taught. So biggest thing is there is no stupid question. The only stupid question is the one that you don't ask. Because I promise you, out of everybody that's sitting here, there's a question that needs to be asked and somebody needs to ask it. So who's going to be first?
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Becky.
Sorry, I had to turn my video off. My daughter's jumping around naked in the background, so I've been paying great
No worries.
Written lots of notes. Like I have some clients, and sometimes like I feel they wouldn't be receptive to me necessarily asking them to do breathing. Like some people get quite embarrassed about kind of the more spiritual side of things, which is totally, we have to respect that, don't we?
Right.
So how would you approach that? And
you don't have to. Okay. So, because I've got clients, you can go more medically based. Okay. Right now, when they're in that emotional release process, you can just talk about, you have lack of oxygen because you've been holding your breath through this process. All right. So let's just take a couple of seconds and let's breathe through it. That's all you got to do. All right. Yeah, you don't have to. I hid the woo-woo stuff for a lot of years, and I have chosen to stand in my power, and it's part of how I help people heal. And I'm no longer going to address it any other way than the way that I know that it helps the body. Because if we were to talk about these things, more people would go, oh yeah, that's so true. Right. Yeah. But if you've got this really staunch, rigid person that I'm just black and white, I only want medical information, those sorts of things, then sure. You've been holding your breath for too long. Let's just take a couple of really nice, long, slow, deep breaths.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you.
But why not just say, hey, there's this beautiful gold light. Let's just suck in some beautiful gold light right now. Yeah. But yeah, no, I get it. Cause you find that more with your older generation. And so the first set of breathing, you might just say, hey, let's just breathe. And then if it starts to happen again, okay, we're back here in the same spot. How about if we just imagine that you're breathing in this beautiful gold light? Let's see how that works.
Yeah.
Baby step it. All
Yeah.
right. Because then all of a sudden they're like, oh, that made such a huge difference. Just imagining that I was filled full of gold light, you
Yeah.
know? So it's just taking baby steps. And then if you have a conversation, and it's okay to have this conversation a little bit before you even start the work. A lot of times my clients, they'll start having emotional releases when we're doing this work. All right. Some of the techniques that I normally use with them is breathing. And we do a bit of visualization, or I might have to do a little bit of guided imagery work with you. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't know what it is? Let's do a little one before we get started so that you can understand what I'm talking about. And then if you're like, nah, I'm good, I don't need any of that, then cool. Stacy, did you have a question, or do you want to add to that?
I wanted to add to that. So one of the things that I find is for a lot of people, like we're really conditioned to just, school conditions us from when we're in our developmental years. This is very important to honor the fact that we are trained out of our intuitive side. And like Jen, I'm not going to hide it anymore. I refuse to hide it for others' comfort zone because they've been trained and conditioned a certain way, and they're unwilling to face the part of themselves that makes them alive. I don't I'm if I gotta prod that a little bit sometimes, because going through losing your chest, losing your breast, losing this identity, like Jen said at the beginning of this, makes women face themselves in a way that you will never face yourself unless you go through that. So if we are the ones who help them to see the divine feminine that they carry and help connect them with the energetic being that they have been so conditioned to ignore, I'm not going to stop that from happening.
Right.
So if I do a baby step or plant a little seed, never underestimate the power of planting a seed. Don't cater to their ego if their ego is stopping them from feeling fully alive. That's all I want to add to that. I know that sounds strong, but the thing is if you face losing your chest, you would have a different perspective on that. This is one of the things where they're so ready to experience life in a more full way. We might be the only people that they meet that give them permission to see that side of themselves, because nobody else in their life understands what they just went through. Nobody understands in my life what I just went through. Nobody understands why I'm passionate about this, or why I'm so emotional about this. And that's fine, because the people that I work on do, and they appreciate it. So I would just say, just don't hold that back too much. Just still get right with that part of yourself so that you can help others get right with that part of themselves, because we're holding ourselves back from a huge portion of the human experience by pretending that we don't have an energetic field.
Yeah.
Well, and same with Becky, if that's not something that is part of your life, maybe that's a door that we just open for you too. And I'm not saying that you must not be very spiritual. I'm not saying that. It's just that maybe it's something that my goal is always to give you new tools.
Yeah.
And my goal is to always give my clients new tools. And most of them now, anybody that comes to me, you never know what you're getting when you come to me. Okay. They're like, well, what kind of work do you do? I combine 50 different things, and every time it's different. And I don't know what I'm going to be guided to do when you're on my table, because who you were this time is not going to be who you are the next time you come and see me. And, some of my clients are like, that gong, I had a client over the weekend. He's like, that gong thing that you did, are you going to do it? I'm like, it's right here. We're going to do it. But I had to do some other things with you during the session. So I never know what I'm going to do. Stacy's been on my table a few times, and I don't know. I don't know what, I connect with your higher self, and then whatever is supposed to happen happens. But for a lot of years, I felt the same way, conditioned, especially when I taught massage, because, the school that I worked at, we chose to go a more medically based route, which is great, to help people heal. Um, uh, but now I wish if I could do it all over again, that I would have maybe taken them a little bit more on a spiritual journey. I mean, I outside of the curriculum, when I worked with the students, they did get that. Me and one of the other instructors that I used to work with, you know, we took students through emotional unwindings where she started with the myofascial unwinding, and then I came in and did energetic work on them, and like literally it was the most beautiful, crazy, amazing stuff that we ever did. And the students are like, what the hell just happened to me? I feel like I just had an exorcism. It's like, well, you kind of did, you know. So it's okay to open the door for people. It really is. But you have to feel good in your power though too, standing, because for years I never talked about the woo woo stuff, and now I'm screaming it because I understood finally, the pandemic for me, the long periods off, I got to dive deeper into my own healing journey and figure out that, yeah, I'm a massage therapist, but really I'm here to help people heal their souls. That's what I was put on the planet for. They're just a captive audience when they're getting their massages. That's all that was, and same thing. I have a feeling most of you that are on this journey here, this is more of soul work for you at this point. And same thing, you've got someone captive on a table to help them heal their soul. And you might not have gotten to that level of understanding yet, but I'm opening the door for you right now. You're all doing soul work.
Amazing. Thanks,
It's an amazing place to be able to be helping people on their soul's journey. So I'm really grateful that all of you guys are here. Anybody else got another question? And did I answer your question, Miss Becky? Yeah. Okay. Anyone else?
I'll add to that a little bit more. I just posted I just wrote in the chat box a little bit that I think that what we need to understand and what we can only teach to our own level of understanding. So I would like to invite you guys and then try to inspire you to know yourself better. That's why I talk so much about the wounded healers, because we can only offer as much as we know about ourselves. When you go through as much in your life as I've been through, you know yourself in ways that most people don't. So that means that I can resonate with people in their trauma and help them find their way out of it in a way that some people can't. So I would just invite you guys to explore anything that you're holding in your physical body, because as much as we don't understand the energy field and our power with it and the Merkaba and all these other things, it doesn't mean they're not a huge part of who we are. They're just what we've been taught out of recognizing, so that we will become more mechanical worker, do the 9-to-5 thing, remember the quiz, write the test, ace the test, get the job, show up, compartmentalize the stuff, like just that we live in a really unnatural way that ignores this side of ourselves, but it's a very important side of ourselves. So I just want to inspire you guys to know yourself more on this side, because I think that our survivors, like I said earlier, are really ready for this, and they'll really benefit from understanding that it's okay to be like we're talking more these days about, oh, I got a bad vibe off that person or whatever. If you resonate, if that person's stressed out maybe about their partnership that day, their mortgage, their husband, whatever, and you resonate with that energy in them, that doesn't mean they're a bad person. It means that you're an energetic being and you're realizing that you're energetic. So since we are learning this to be true as a collective, just own that knowledge, just get into yourself, just kind of like explore that, like an unexamined life isn't a life worth living. So just start examining, like, wow, I really, I was kind of triggered right there or whatever. And then be like, where's that coming from? And how can I change my perspective on that? And how can I use that new perspective to help others?
Right. Just to piggyback on that one also. So, the fascia is all about introception. So interoception is the body's ability to sense things. So an example of interoception would be all of a sudden you have the sensation or the knowing that you have to go pee. Okay. Proprioception is the body's understanding spatially where it's at. So when you go to pick up the gallon of milk out of the refrigerator and you had put it in the night before and you knew it weighed this much, and then you go to pick it up the next morning and you're like, whoa, and it's because someone had gotten into it in the middle of the night and it had changed the weight. So proprioceptors are inside of the muscle tissue, and it helps us understand spatially where we are in space. Interoception has more to do with the sensations and the feelings. Western society, we have always been taught to think and then feel. Other societies actually do feeling first and then think about it. So learning how to understand what you're feeling is so important. And then that's what the some of the body mind coaching does is we pull you out of the rational thinking, which is really other people's opinions that we have taken as our truths. The implementation and the indoctrination into other people's opinions, and it's not even how we feel, but no one might have ever taken the time to go, how do you feel? What do you need? A lot of us have never been given an opportunity to even think about those things. I mean, and everybody's first reaction is, I don't know. I'm like, all right, just breathe that for a minute and really see where it resonates and how does that feel, so that you can have an answer for the first time. So this work that we're doing here really might be the first time that a woman's ever been given permission to put herself on the list and to voice how she truly feels about something. It can be magic. All right. Anybody else have a question? I'm going to read some of these comments. Yeah. Oh, all right. Well, if nobody has any other questions, I am going to
message you if we think of something.
Absolutely. I'll have Stacy post. Why don't you link our, or are you going to put anything on Facebook or no?
We have a private Facebook group, and I don't know if you guys like I invited you guys all to it, and I'm not sure if you are like, if you follow it or whatever, but I only post things in there that I want you guys all to know. Like, I'm not always in there making a bunch of stuff. So I will post in there what Jen has going on, and I might follow it up with an email to everybody, but I'd want you to definitely check your, I don't want you guys missing any emails. So make sure that you check your junk folder, whatever. And because
I think you put
stuff. Yeah.
Did you put me in that? I think you already put me in that group, didn't you?
I don't think so. I'm not sure.
No. Oh, okay.
It's just for the ART team
Oh,
only. It's
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But so if you need to, yes, you could. I have my regular Facebook page. So Jennifer Denman. Here, I'll put it down here. I have a Facebook group for my business, Jennifer Denman LMT. I'll put. Let me just.
And I'll put a link to Jen just started when we did the digital class. She just started a breast health page too. So I'll post that on I think I already did, but I'll post it again so you guys can go and join it if you want.